Hi, welcome to a brief overview of gogaurdian Teacher. While teachers used to be able to look out on the classroom and see whether their students had their books open to the right chapter, you don't always get that same transparency when devices are open in the classroom. gogaurdian Teacher provides a digital window into student online activity, so teachers can see what students are doing on their devices and whether their students are off task or need help. When you see that a student is off task, you can easily correct that behavior by locking their screen or closing tabs of distracting content, getting your students back on track quickly. Sometimes technology can cause problems and waste valuable time in the classroom. But with gogaurdian Teacher, you can push tabs out to students, getting everyone on the same page quickly and cutting down on transition time. You can even lock them to specific sites they'll need for the lesson. gogaurdian Teacher also helps you engage with students both digitally and face-to-face. With the gogaurdian chat feature, you can send messages with students privately to offer guidance or answer questions. You can also send an announcement to the whole class. And if you need to walk around the class and give support, you can choose specific websites to allow or block during class. So even when you're across the room helping one student, you can be confident that the rest of your students are on task. Or you can check student browsing history after class to make sure that your students were on task and understanding the lesson. This is why our users love gogaurdian Teacher, because it lets you get away from your computer and interact with students face-to-face. Thank you for joining us for this brief overview of gogaurdian Teacher. Click the button after the video, or click here for more.
Hi, my name is Tyler Sheddix and I'm a product manager at gogaurdian. Today I'm really excited to show you Google Classroom integration in gogaurdian for Teachers. Google Classroom integration will allow me to pull over all of my Google Classrooms and the students in them and sync them with gogaurdian for Teachers. To get started, I'll need a classroom in Google Classroom. You can see here that I have a classroom named The History of Spaceflight with 4 different students in it. It'd be really nice if I could take these students in this classroom and bring it over to gogaurdian for Teachers. We can go back to gogaurdian for Teachers and click the Add Classroom button. If I scroll to the bottom of this pop-up, I'm actually going to see a new Add from Google button. Clicking this will bring me to the Google authorization page, where I give gogaurdian permission to list my classrooms. This is going to bring me back to gogaurdian for Teachers, where I will now see a list of all my Google Classrooms. Sweet! There's my History of Spaceflight class. Let's click on that and watch as gogaurdian for Teachers creates the classroom from the Google Classroom. We can see that not only is the classroom created, but the students from the Google Classroom are pulled over as well. Let's go back to our Google Classroom and remove one of the students. Now that I've made changes to the Google Classroom student list, I can go back to gogaurdian for Teachers and click the Sync from Google button. Clicking this button is going to immediately go to Google Classroom and get the latest students and sync that to your gogaurdian for Teachers classroom. All Google connected classrooms are synced every hour, but if you need changes to happen immediately, you can do just as I did and click this blue Sync Students from Google button. You'll notice when you go back to your Classrooms page that any Google connected classroom will be labeled with the Google G. That pretty much describes all of the awesomeness which is Google Classroom integration.
So when you're looking at your classroom dashboard here and you select a specific class like this, you saw in the previous video probably that you are defaulted to sessions. So think of sessions like the time that your gogaurdian is actually active and you can interact with your students. So you can see over here on the right-hand corner that it's defaulted to go for 45 minutes. You can stop that early and I'll show you how. And then you can apply specific scenes to this session. And I talk about scenes a little bit farther down below. If I had any sessions running already, I would see a history and a timeline of them here, and I could go back and I could select those. So to start a session, I simply click Start Session. And again, I'm going to see these things, student not found, because I have a whole bunch of teachers in this Google Classroom I did, and we're not monitoring teachers. So, but I could, in theory, click on these different things. I could see that student's screen at that time, the different things that they have up. I can exclude them from what's going on. There's all sorts of different cool things here. But again, this is kind of the basic of what you need. And hands down, the most important piece of a session is this chat feature. So if I turn on chat, you'll notice that it's now blue, and I have a little blue bubble down here in the bottom right-hand corner, and I can click on this, and every single one of my students who's online will be here. So notice these are kind of dark and hard to see. If they're online, these would be filled in white, much like this text up here. I could click on this. It's going to give me a little chat window, and I can type. They'll get a notification on the screen, and they can type back to me. This is only a teacher to student, student to teacher chat window. Students cannot talk to each other through this feature. When I am done with this session, all I have to do is hit End Session, and it's going to give me a little window. So notice I have this defaulted for 45 minutes, but I can end that sucker early. And then if I would be able to see a timeline of my students' activity here, and if it were long enough, I could click and drag back and forth on this sucker here. So that's sessions, and that's just the way that you actually make GoGuardian active.
Well, I set out to do the gogaurdians training session, and I was really hoping that I was going to be able to do it live and show you guys how to do all these different things. But when I got home, the gogaurdian wasn't working. There was something with our subscription. I'm sure it'll be working probably tomorrow, but tonight I needed it to be able to put together this little presentation. I hope you found the videos useful that I chose. I just wanted to give it a quick overview. It's not really a true training session. The big takeaway here is that for me at least, if I didn't have gogaurdian, I don't think I would be using the Chromebooks very much at all. I wouldn't be using computers because there's just so many things that the students can get off task by. gogaurdian, being able to see their screens, being able to lock things down, and really control their virtual environment to some extent, makes everything that I'm doing kind of much more worthwhile and just a lot more enriching. Students usually comply very well with it once they can see what I'm doing and the reason I'm using it. The chat feature is incredibly nice. Instead of disrupting the whole classroom, I can quietly just send a chat message to one student if I see that they're stuck on a certain problem, or if they need some guidance, or maybe they're just on the wrong part of a website. I can quietly, subtly just redirect them where they need to go. And you know, students, if you're going to have them on computers, they're going to try to be on sites that you really didn't want them to be on. And as soon as you walk by their computer, whoop, the screen comes down and that tab is closed, and then you walk away and it's right back up again. One of the things with gogaurdian is that timeline. It just is recording everything that they're doing. And when I pull a student aside and say, I try to not to catch students doing things that are wrong, but if I pull them aside and say, hey, you know, at this minute you were playing a video game. That's really not what this is for. It usually stops them, and I don't have them repeatedly going and doing those things because they know that I'm going to see what they're doing. So gogaurdian for me makes the difference between kind of a frustration with teaching using virtual websites and digital material to something that I feel is really, really valuable. Well, I hope you found this interesting and useful. Stay hydrated and have a good rest of your day.